We're back with an update in your weather forecast for the third week of December, and boy, is there a lot going on this week. I'm excited to get into details about early prospects of a white Christmas, who's going to see snow this week, and if you hate the cold, who's actually going to be very warm and possibly rainy. If you take a look at our radar right now, you can actually see two active storm systems ongoing, one in the east, one in the north central U.S., and this is just the start of an active week that you need to stay ahead of. So without further ado, let's jump into our forecast. To get an idea of what's going to happen in our weather with this active pattern, we need to get an idea of the big picture. So I'm showing you the overall air masses, and we can pick out where some of these storm systems are based on where we have low pressure higher up in the atmosphere. So I circled them for you right there. And by the way, I'm a meteorologist, so you're going to get the best weather information here. Be sure to like and subscribe. And as we move through the week, you're going to see these systems shift eastwards. We get that one that just moved past the east coast. Here's our next one continuing to move east. We got another one coming on shore here. This is now your Tuesday into Wednesday, middle of the week. We get later into the week, we begin to see a system manifest itself out here, and this second wave of energy, it's going to come and meet it. And as it does, it's going to make for the potential of something bigger on the east, and at least it'll be a much colder air mass, whereas in the west, we see the counterbalance of a much warmer air mass. This is into next weekend. But let me show you what's going to happen at the surface, because this gives us an idea of more so what we can expect in terms of rain and snow. And we'll start here on Monday. You'll see Monday we have this area of rain out here in the Midwest. We got a little bit of rain, could be some icy spots in the Northeast. We also have this clipper system in Canada. It's going to keep on shifting eastwards as well. And we have another system coming off the Pacific coastline that'll bring a lot of rain to those coastal areas and a lot of snow to the mountains. So you can already tell off the bat here, this is Monday, very active pattern. But as we move this forwards, you're going to begin to see that system in Canada. It's going to create a cold front more or less, or at least it's going to attach to that system. It'll manifest itself in a cold front, and it'll bring a good amount of rain to the northeast, the mid-Atlantic, even parts of the southeast. We'll catch a little bit of a break in the mountains out here at the start of the week, but we're not done with active weather. You're going to see another system develop in the northwest. You can see that right now, and in the south and east and midwest, we have yet another storm system that's going to bring some rain and potentially some snow as well. So if we move this forward, you're going to see that guy enter the northeast. That's a lot of rain. That's a reasonably powerful system close to the coastline, but farther inland, that's where you're looking at what may be some decent snow. We also have this guy coming in too, and we'll need to watch and see where this guy goes and if it meets up with any energy in the ocean, because if it does, that could make for a nor'easter, to say the very least. But at the very least, what it is going to be snow cutting across the north central, U.S. and the Midwest as well, and that will at least bring some disruptions to travel. Now, what happens once it gets to the east? It all depends. Does that guy end up phasing with this guy out here? Guidance right now is kind of shunting it out over the ocean, but it is a trend that we need to watch. Meanwhile, the Northwest at the same time, even into early next week, if you watch the area, you're going to see some more active weather, and that pattern of heavy rain and even some heavy snow in the mountains will continue. So that sort of sums up what we're looking at as we begin the week here, and we're certainly going to be talking about a decent amount of rain in many of these spots, which we can also take a look at here. So let's open up our QPF, and we'll get an idea of exactly how much will fall. This is rain and snow, technically. It's overall water content. And you'll notice anywhere you're seeing those purple colors, that's about 1 inch to 2 inches. Red colors are 2 inches or more. A decent swath of precip out here where we have those storm systems in the east. And in the west, look at all those gold colors. That really tells you a lot about all the moisture crashing into those mountains in the northwest, where you have the gold colors, and you can see them on the coastline too. That's 4 inches or more of precip. So certainly there is a chance for some flooding, and there is going to be some heavy snow, which I'll also take a look at with you here too. But what that also says is that, other than flooding, is that you just have an overall very active pattern. It's going to be stormy, going to be gray, and you need to be ready for those changes throughout the week. So here's our total snowfall. Here's one of our forecasts. You can see some of those mountains in the northeast looking at, in some of the highest peaks, over a foot of snow. Generally in the mountains, we're looking at least 6 inches. At least that seems to be the consensus. Even down the Apps, we could see a few inches all the way into West Virginia, even farther south, North Carolina. And then with that system that cuts across the north central U.S. here, of course, that's not mountainous, but you could get a few inches of snowfall. Likely 1 to 3, but if you're near those lakes, those lake effect snow machines will get going, and you could get, anywhere from 6 to 12 along those lake shores. So a decent snowfall for a good amount of people. The question will be if it sticks around, and we're going to answer that question here in a moment. But I also want to point out our mountains in the Pacific Northwest. I mean, that's a lot of snow out there. We're looking at, some of these peaks are going to see feet of snow, 2 to 3 feet likely. But it depends all on the elevation and where exactly you are. And you can kind of see as I hover over some of the mountains, you get those smaller numbers, and then you see some of those 20-inch totals. That is just, of course, all elevation based. So an active pattern, to say the very least, as we go into the end of this week and really approach Christmas. But the question, like I said, is does any of this snow stick around, and is there any chance for more of it later on? Let's take a look at those temperatures and this just overall massive pattern shift. We're back to taking a look at the upper level pattern, and you can see each individual air mass here, which is pretty cool if you ask me. Where you have those red colors, that's a warmer air mass. It causes the atmosphere to expand and rise, essentially. And where you have those blue colors, that's where it's colder. It causes the atmosphere to contract and sink in height, basically. And what you can see here are red colors across Canada and the eastern U.S. To begin the week, we have that colder air mass out here in the west. But as we move this forward, you're going to see our pattern stays very active. Those bubbles, they kind of come and go, they fade, they emerge. There's really not a huge signal for anything really taking hold at the start of the week. That's why partially we have so many storms. But you'll notice that generally you have those orange, warmer colors across the U.S. here through the middle of the week. But as we get later into the week, we're going to begin to see some cold air that is up here sink into the U.S., and this ridge right here is going to build up. So watch what happens. This is now Thursday, but we're getting into Friday and the weekend, and we have this much, much colder air mass begin to settle in the east. That is just polar air that slips down farther south, and at the same time, there's our counterweight in the west, that massive ridge. But I'll also mention out here near Greenland, we would be looking for some warmer colors up there. We call it blocking. We don't have that. So this cold air is going to be able to slip back out. Actually, it'll more so move back out like that, and it's not going to hang on very long. But you can see here, this is December 24th. It's still not super warm in the east, so that question is going to be, how long can we hold on to snow? Meanwhile, in the north central U.S., yeah, it's getting a bit warmer, so I'm less on board with seeing a lot of snow basically stick around out there. We can also take a look, though, at some of those temperature anomalies relative to average, a little closer to the ground. This is a few thousand feet up, and it translates to the surface very well. So here we are on Monday, start of the week. There's those reddish-orange colors. We get one wave of cold air. It tries to get in, but doesn't really make it. You'll see it just brush the U.S., but that opens the door here as we get later into the week. Now we begin to see that separation in the west and in the east. And that cold air mass in the east, it's significant. You're going to see some purple colors show up. That tells you that we're much, much below our average. And when you have those pink colors like you're seeing in the west, it's quite the opposite. So here we are. This is basically the end of the upcoming weekend. Move this into Monday because we're going a little past the week since Christmas is coming up. Tuesday and even into Wednesday here. This is Christmas. This is what the pattern looks like. That's pretty warm across the north central U.S. So any snow out there, I'm not confident is going to stick around, at least not unless it's deep enough. So that depends on how powerful our storms are. But in the east, if we can manage snow out here, that's where it may actually stick around. Not so much in the south out here, but at least in the mid-Atlantic and northeast, if we can get the snow. Now, we can also take a look at our actual temperatures here, just get you a plan for what you need to dress for and all that. So we'll start here on Monday, and you're seeing anywhere you see those green colors, those are temperatures above freezing in the 30s and 40s. A lot of mild temperatures. The west is a bit colder, but I mean, if you look down to the south, gosh, those are temps in the 70s across a good chunk of the south, especially southeast U.S. We're not really seeing temperatures down to freezing even in the northeast. It's really just the north central. So as we keep on moving here, there's your Tuesday, here's Wednesday. Getting colder in the north central U.S. on Thursday. This is where that cold air mass begins to come in. And you're going to see some very cold temperatures, especially in the northeast. Thursday, Friday now, you're seeing temps. Anywhere you're seeing those purples, those are temps that are getting down to the single digits, could even be below zero. And we're beginning to see that appear in the northeast as well. Now we move this into the weekend, and you'll see the real cold air begin to fall into place. And Sunday looks like it's going to be certainly a frigid day, especially in the morning. Those are temps that could definitely be around zero, even below zero in some of the higher elevations in the northeast, and temps that'll easily be below zero in the north central U.S. So it gets pretty darn cold. Meanwhile, the western U.S., pretty mild, and we'll see temperatures recover out there. So again, there's your split as we get into the weekend. And just to show you, here's your Monday. We're getting into Tuesday now. This is where we begin to see the snow get eaten up a bit. Here's your Christmas. Now, it's possible these temperatures are around freezing out here, that snow sticks around, but it likely is going to be melting. Meanwhile, the northeast, this is Christmas, still below freezing. Pretty warm out there if you're in Texas. So a couple different areas that we need to be keeping an eye on. But it's all about those storm systems, and certainly we'll have an update on those storms too coming up. But we'll leave our forecast there. Of course, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Love to answer them. Love to give you a personal forecast if you need it. I'm hoping we get a white Christmas. I'm out in the Northeast. I hope everyone does. It just really sets the scene, But this year, it's such an active pattern. There's a chance for some, but when you have this kind of activity, typically it means it's all or nothing. Part of the country is just going to be too warm. The other part, has a really realistic shot. It's just a matter of, do those storm systems produce, and do we have the cold air overlapping at the same time? So I'm excited to watch that. Something else that comes to mind too, of course, college football playoffs are going on. You saw how cold it gets in the eastern U.S., so we'll have a few cold games. I believe 3 of the 4 we're talking about temperatures that'll be, at least well below average. South Bend, Notre Dame is going to be cold. Penn State College can be really cold. There's one other game I'm totally blanking on, but it's going to be cold for those games. So if you believe in the weather impacting some of those warmer teams more than others, maybe a storyline to follow. But we'll leave the forecast there. Again, make sure to like, subscribe, and be sure to drop a comment, even if you don't need a personal forecast. I'd love to hear where you're watching from. And we do this every Sunday. We'll be back next week. In fact, we'll have midweek updates this week because the weather's so active. So hope to see you next time, and stay warm and stay dry out there.